Hey, you're listening to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MPR. As always, I'm Grady, and live on Skype we got Josh. Gonna immediately bring it down from my hyped intro, and just quickly mention that Wrestling Roundup will continue through this period, but we don't know exactly in the future what sort of form it's going to take. At the moment, obviously, both WWE and AEW are doing empty arena shows, but we're only getting so much new storyline to discuss each week. So let's see what next week's going to hold for us. But for this week, we can still do our regular little recap of where we're heading from Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and then AEW at the end if we got some time. But first off, before we get to any of that, we missed, I think when the show went out last week, we were actually correctly on time. No new announcements happened between recording and airing. But since then, we've had an announcement that WrestleMania will air from the Performance Center. And then we had an announcement that WrestleMania will be 2 days, with Gronk hosting both days, potentially in different arenas/areas.
It makes sense. They can't do TakeOver Tampa anymore. You might as well just do a second day of WrestleMania.
Yeah, so along with all of that, the fact that, as you say, TakeOver Tampa and the Hall of Fame are up in the air as to what's going to happen. I think a lot in general is going to be up in the air. But in terms of where the 2 days are and everything like that, I'm assuming this is going to be so they can split personnel between A and B to keep numbers down. That's just a feeling.
Yeah, probably, but if I'm WWE, I talk to USA and Fox and see if I can't get like Saturday's part aired on USA and Sunday's part aired on Fox. Could you imagine the amount of advertising they could get from advertising WrestleMania on cable television?
Yeah, it would be insanity.
It would rival the Super Bowl.
It's such a unique situation at the moment, and it's such a quickly or rapidly changing situation as well. There's still a chance, we're 3 weeks out from WrestleMania. There's still a chance it just completely gets canned and doesn't happen. It all comes down to, are additional sanctions put in place? Does somebody in the staff get sick? There's so many things that could still just absolutely can it, or change plans. It seems like everything is changing within the WWE camp with their plans as well. So it's a wait and see game.
The one person in the entire company that needs to be taking hourly baths in hand sanitizer is Roman Reigns.
There's a few, but yeah, Roman Reigns is top of the list, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not because of his position or anything, it's because of his history.
Mm-hmm.
The leukemia actually makes him a high risk for this whole situation.
Yeah.
So, yes, he definitely has to be extremely careful over the next however many weeks we need to get through this situation.
And obviously we're talking about WrestleMania, does WrestleMania go ahead? How do we get to WrestleMania? What's the show's going to look like for the next 3 weeks until we get there? It's also not just about WrestleMania, There's after WrestleMania. We don't know currently, sitting in this situation, talking into these microphones, is empty arena shows and is this style of wrestling entertainment going to be the future for 1 month, for 2 months, or for 9 months? We don't know where we're going from here.
Not really, but we know one thing. If WWE can help it, they're not going to change the date or anything, simply because of situations with their current Universal Champion, as well as John Cena's schedule.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to postpone WrestleMania, there's no guarantees that Cena will be available.
Yeah.
And Goldberg isn't getting any younger.
Yeah. It's a rough one. I'll be interested to see how they end up pulling it off. Obviously, you look at WrestleMania, and WrestleMania is maybe 20% wrestling and 80% spectacle. And I'm sure WWE are going to put their all into it. But I think the best way to put it is that WrestleMania 36 will be unique.
It would give them a chance to actually use that 3D technology they usually use during WrestleMania.
Yeah, especially,
Because I just thought of them 3D in an entire crowd in the Performance Center, just because that would be hilarious.
I think it would potentially look cool, but I don't know how feasible it is. Obviously, I'm not a tech guy, but I'm interested to see locations-wise as well. Rumors are that one of those nights will be Performance Center and the other one potentially not. Don't know where or what or anything like that. Performance Center obviously indoor, so you can't have necessarily massive fireworks stuff, massive pyro. It's unique is all I just keep coming back to, and ever changing.
Yeah, just imagine we live in a time where we've seen 101,000 people in an arena, and we're fixing to see an attendance of 0.
Yeah, it will like crowd-wise, absolute 0, and then even personnel-wise, less than 50. Like, numbers got to be kept down at all costs. So, yeah, unique. But well, let's talk about some of the stuff that we are probably going to see at WrestleMania. We're going to have to continue assuming that it all goes ahead as scheduled in terms of the matches and all of that stuff. Otherwise, we're going to have absolutely nothing to talk about this week. So we will presume so. And it's probably best if we just run down the matches we've got. John Cena and The Fiend are continuing their little feud.
This is pretty much poetry in motion. Brings back the match that they had in, I think, WrestleMania 31.
Yeah, I think it was around there.
Yeah. I'm interested because I want to see how they play this off. Because obviously, Cena's never been scared of anything. So for him being scared of The Fiend would be completely out of character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what the hook seems to be. Bray Wyatt's coming out and saying, "Mate, The Fiend's gonna fight you," and John Cena kind of go, "Well, that's cool." And obviously these two can talk back and forth every week, based on availability, obviously, but they're not going to be hurt talking wise in the ring. And I think this is one of those feuds that can continue to be built for. I'm gonna actually go check how many weeks until WrestleMania. 2 content weeks of WrestleMania. So for the next 2 content weeks, build towards their WrestleMania match without, needing too much of the wrestling and argy-bargy in between. So I think this match will be a fine one. Both characters love to play off the crowd a little bit, so I don't know bell-to-bell content-wise how great it'll be, but I'm sure both wrestlers will bring it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we're just going to have to enjoy the process. It's all we've got right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that goes for the other Friday Night SmackDown match that was hyped up as well, which was the Universal Championship match between Goldberg and Roman Reigns.
Yeah, I feel really bad for Roman, because this was a chance where him taking the title off of a part-timer that nobody wanted to have the title in the first place might have gotten him a semi-cheer. And now there's not going to be anybody in the crowd to cheer.
Roman's also been, ever since this whole empty arena stuff, been the absolute butt of jokes. In terms of now there'll be no one to boo Roman Reigns. Vince finally gets what he wants and all of this stuff. But I'm with you. I think Roman could have gotten a good reception at WrestleMania after he beats Goldberg, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah, it's just going to be what it is. Roman is going to be the Universal Champion after WrestleMania. I don't see any world in which he doesn't take the title. This isn't a Brock Lesnar situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty confident in saying that one.
Yeah. And then the question is, where do we go from here? And usually, if we're discussing a feud or a match like this, and then we get to that, where do we go from here? We at least have some sort of inkling or some sort of thread that we can pull on down. But in the current times, we don't know what the scenario is going to be in 2 weeks from now. In terms of Roman Reigns' Universal Championship, WWE, Raw, SmackDown, or any of his potential opponents. So everything's in such a state of flux that it's kind of hard to predict much further out than 2 weeks.
I have a feeling we'll probably get like a draft or a whatever or shakeup shortly after WrestleMania, or at least that's what probably was going to be the plan, and then we would get somebody from Raw to challenge Roman for the Universal Championship. I don't know if that's still going to be the plan, but that's probably what I would do. Is I'd probably pull somebody from the upper mid card area to challenge Roman Reigns for the title and bring them over to Raw to at least as a first opponent. Maybe depending on his health, maybe Samoa Joe.
Samoa Joe's
Obviously,
been lovely.
He wouldn't win the title, but he would still be a worthy first feud as champion.
Yeah, it would be something. And at the moment, all we can really hope for is that, content keeps ticking along, basically. And WWE show...
Or maybe Seth Rollins.
Maybe.
Break up the Monday Night Messiah's stable, because it seems to be in shambles at the moment, and send him over to SmackDown to go have fun with Roman for a little while.
No, you can't do that. You can't Shield feud people. You're insane. But yeah, I think something's gonna happen. Don't quite know what. We'll have to wait and see what is after that feud, or really what's after any of these feuds. All a bit up in the air. I believe the rest are all Raw feuds when it comes to WrestleMania. So we will jump on into our entrance theme this week, and our entrance theme, because of some Hall of Fame announcement news coming out this week, will be the British Bulldogs theme. And you're back to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and NPR. My name's Grady, and his is Josh. So as I alluded to heading into that song, yes, the British Bulldog is the next entrant into the WWE Hall of Fame.
Woo! It's about time. He deserved it. That's putting it mildly, in my opinion. So yeah, it's nice to see him finally take his place. Obviously, it would have been nicer if he was still alive, but that would have required a lot of different choices in his life before the end. So, but at least he gets his honor, and we might get to see Davey Jr. Accept the honor on his behalf.
Yeah, it's one of those people who everybody always listed, is who do you want in the Hall of Fame, and everybody would always list him, and a year would go by, and a year would go by, and a year would go by, and at least now it's finally happening. So, better late than never. But we will now look at some Raw feuds when it comes to WrestleMania 36. And I guess the first thing to talk about is that Edge and Randy Orton will be a last man standing match.
Sure, why not?
Weirdly enough, that was my exact reaction. Sure.
Why not? I guess it's this case where they want to try to protect him as much as possible, but also, because of the physicality of the feud, they need something to at least give Edge a reason to do something more than just win a match. Obviously, they're not making the same mistake they made at WrestleMania 25 with Randy Orton's match here.
I have a bad memory. What did Randy do at WrestleMania 25?
That was the match we had with Triple H. the one where they built up the feud with him attacking the McMahons and stuff, and then put a handcuff on what Triple H could do to get his revenge
Gotcha.
by making the match where if he got disqualified, he lost the title.
Yeah. It's definitely good they didn't do anything weird like that. My one sort of weird thing about a last man standing match is usually they're fairly definitive, in terms of, you have to keep another dude down for 10, which is arguably more than 3 times the 3 count. And by arguably, I mean mathematically.
Yeah, but I would throw out a couple matches where that's not actually the case, where it wasn't definitive.
It's true.
One being the last man standing match between Ciampa and Gargano. That didn't really solve anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was one a few years back between Triple H and HBK that ended with neither man being able to answer the 10 call count.
Yeah. They've got options. I'm just not entirely sure. I expected there to be some sort of stipulation, some sort of no holds barred, no DQ thing, just to let Edge be a little more free. They've been building up the chairs a lot in this feud, and just give them a little something to do out there that's not wrestle 20 minutes between the ropes.
Yeah. But as far as that second thing I suggested, I don't see that happening at a WrestleMania.
No.
I don't see a no finish like that.
No. But anything can happen. Just probably not that.
Yeah. It should be interesting to see how it plays out. But yeah, it gives them more options for the match.
Mm-hmm. Well, another match that they might need some options for is AJ Styles versus The Undertaker. 1-on-1. Set up, ready to go, contract all signed.
Okay, fine. It's what it is. AJ is the best there is in the company right now. So if anybody's going to take care of an aging Undertaker, it would be him.
Yeah, obviously I expect something to be added, even if it's a simple OC is barred from ringside kind of thing. I don't know what they're going to do in the next 2 weeks with these guys. Word is The Undertaker didn't really want to be on Raw, so he had a bit of a different look, but I don't know if that is his different look going forward, or if the rumors on the sheets are true or not. I tend to head towards they might not be, but maybe they are, maybe they ain't. But it could mean that this match could go from fairly decent to the other side. I doubt even with AJ Styles in the ring with The Undertaker we're going to reach that level of great of a match, but maybe they'll surprise me.
Maybe. I think it'll be a pretty good match. And I say that because I think a lot of the problems that the Undertaker's had over the last couple of years had to do with with his hips having issues with them, and he did have surgery on it about a year ago or so.
Yeah.
So I think he'll have a decent match.
Okay. Fingers crossed. And then the other stuff on Raw. Gotta mention Stone Cold Steve Austin coming out to an empty crowd to play up everybody, and then ending up kicking Byron Saxton square in the lower regions. It's not a great TLDR of that segment, but it's the best bits.
Yeah. I'm over Austin. He never doesn't do anything that does anything to benefit any of the current superstars ever, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it would be one thing if Austin came in and say a few months back when there was the rumors that he might do something with the Fiend. If he had done that, I wouldn't have a problem with what he did on Raw. But he doesn't put anybody over. I don't think anybody's touched him at all as far as anything since like 2003.
The only piece I'll add on to my TLDR was that in the end Becky Lynch ends up coming out in some massive ass painted up truck with her face on the side and taking a beer with Austin. So there was a little bit of an endorsement, but not a whole lot. WWE.com, to quote them, did say there was a passing of a torch from one rebel to another. But that is WWE.com. So that's all I can give him on that part, is that he did kick Byron Saxton in the groin area. But Becky Lynch got to have a beer with him. But yeah, definitely in the past, that's been the case. They've loved to have their legends come out and just sort of wreak havoc and show that they're somehow magically better than the current guys. But we'll have to. I think this was a one-off, obviously for 316 Day, and was used 90% for a comedy segment due to the lack of crowd. I don't know how much of Raw was being rewritten on the fly due to the fact that they had no crowd. You know, they had Austin, they had Undertaker both scheduled. I don't know if that would have been the case had they known it was going to be empty arena for the last week or so. So we'll have to wait and see going forward what we see from Raw and SmackDown. Because if NXT is any sort of hint of what the future might be, NXT actually contained 0 new matches. It just contained, I think it was Gargano, Ciampa, Ripley, and Finn Balor talking about their journeys to their big matches coming up. So I don't know what our future Raw and SmackDown content's going to look like. But I'm also not totally and entirely against that NXT sort of storytelling type stuff. It'll be interesting to see. I know as much as people have said, ratings don't matter in this time period and stuff like that, but I think ratings are still going to matter to a television network. So it'll be interesting to see, I guess, what NXT ends up pulling with its sort of storytelling special that it did this week. Would you hate it if from now on Raw and SmackDown turned into sort of 90% storytelling?
Not really. But the problem is that storytelling is really a lost art these days. So I don't know how well that will actually turn out. But I wouldn't have a problem with it, because that's really what the golden age called the Attitude Era was. It was about 90% storytelling, very little wrestling.
That's true. I guess it's also a lot harder in terms of you have to be really committed to it. You can't half-butt it. So who knows? But another match that was made official, I think it's probably the final match looking at the time that we'll manage to get through. Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins. We already knew it was going to happen, but it is, I believe, official now for WrestleMania 36.
Yep. Hey, this'll be KO's big moment. It'll actually be KO Mania. It only took KO Mania 4 to happen.
Yeah. I hope he continues the shirt stuff. That's good stuff. But yeah, I think Kevin Owens will finally get his moment. To crowd or not, he will get that one-upping over the Messiah. Seth Rollins has had plenty of moments before. It's Kevin Owens' turn now. And then jumping over to AEW for a very short while. Hopefully Josh doesn't scream and yell. But we did see 2 new debuts. Arguably 3 if you include last week. We didn't cover that too much. But I'm going to talk about all of it, and then we can end on a rant. But Jake the Snake Roberts last week comes out and introduces Lance Archer as a bit of a debut, bit of his client doing their thing. This week, the former Luke Harper, now reknown as Brodie Lee, debuts as the Exalted One leading the Dark Order. And then Broken Matt Hardy will be joining the Elite in their upcoming 5v5 match against the Inner Circle, due to one of the Young Bucks being unable to make the show due to the birth of their next child, I believe.
Oh.
Now I just lean back and let Josh go.
What was one of the biggest promises AEW made when they announced their company and announced what they were going to be doing and announced their show on TNT? They promised not to rely on Attitude Era stars, ex-WWE stars. And then we get Jericho as champion. We get Moxley as champion. And now we've gotten all these debuts and stuff, and they're just constant ex-WWE guys. And now we have to deal with, you know what? I love Brodie Lee. I loved him in WWE. I loved him before WWE. So I think he can get over in AEW. But it still doesn't change the fact that they are not sticking to their promises. They're not doing what they need to get over their own talent without resorting to bringing in ex WWE guys that WWE doesn't want at the moment or can't go back to WWE. And at the same time, they can't help but take any shot that they don't need to do at WWE. And that's just so stupid. And then you wonder why people don't take the company seriously.
Rant over? /rant?
I'm done.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good timing, because we're out of time for this week anyway, so it's been great talking to you.
Bye, B.
You can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/WrestlingRadio, Twitter page, twitter.com/WrestlingRadio, and we'll see you next week with some sort of show. We don't quite know what just yet, but we will see you next week.